Welcome to Your Career Podcast. If you're looking for inspiration in your career or job search, you're at the right place. I'm Jane Jackson, your career management coach and author of Navigating Career Crossroads. For more career advice and support, go to janejacksoncoach.com and find all you need to create the career of your dreams. Welcome to episode 271 of Your Career Podcast. This episode is a story of resilience and transformation, the importance of self-belief, perseverance, and the power of knowing when to walk away versus when to push through. Steve Budgen is a trusted global security advisor and leader with over 30 years of experience spanning elite policing units, international security operations, and crisis management. This interview on Your Career Podcast is a story of courage, determination, and exceptional leadership. Steve Budgen has led high-stakes security projects across Iraq, the UAE, Papua New Guinea, and beyond. As the founder of Batavi Special Projects, Steve specialises in physical security, risk management, and leadership development, offering strategic guidance to companies navigating complex challenges. A former AFP Tactical Operations leader, Steve ran complex special operations overseas before stepping out of his comfort zone to pursue a successful career in the commercial world. His consulting work has supported large organizations in the maritime, transport, mining, and oil and gas sectors, delivering bespoke solutions to contemporary challenges. Steve has also served as a director with the New South Wales Environment Protection Authority, where he drove cultural reform before returning to consulting, bringing his leadership expertise to help organizations strengthen their resilience and operational excellence. His story is one of resilience and transformation shaped by a rough and troubled childhood that taught him the importance of self-belief, perseverance, and the power of knowing when to walk away. His passion lies in helping others leverage their strengths, passions, and life experiences to create valuable, marketable tools for success. A strong advocate for continuous growth, Steve holds certifications in security, risk management, and is focused on further enhancing his expertise in change management and governance. This career journey embodies the balance between mental and physical fitness, embracing challenges, and driving meaningful change. And let's welcome Steve to the show. Hello, Steve.
Hi, Jane.
It's been 10 years since we worked together.
I couldn't believe that when you told me that.
I know. I know, honestly, I thought it was 5 years. And when I look back on LinkedIn as to when we actually did work together, it was exactly 10 years ago. So that's crazy. And I'm so glad that thanks to LinkedIn, you popped up in my feed again with a really inspiring post about leadership. And so, of course, I have to interview you because your career journey from 2015 to now was fascinating, but then even before that was even better. So let's just kick it off with, what were your early career aspirations, Steve, when you were a little boy?
I think I always wanted to be in the military. I remember growing up and we moved around to a lot of places. I lived in a lot of housing commission places. My parents broke up when I was very young. I remember watching old black and white war movies and things like that at home. And always wanted to be somebody make something of myself. So I think it was toward that sort of defense Navy sort of thing that I sort of gravitated toward. Yeah.
And from those early career aspirations, then you did actually join the New South Wales Police Force. So being in that sort of regimented, structured environment where you're doing something for the community, was that a strong pull for you?
Yeah, definitely. I really wanted to give back. I wanted to be a protector, and I wanted to make a difference.
Mhm.
I never thought I'd do it. I struggled at school. I went to around 20 different schools.
Wow.
Uh, because we moved around a lot in different housing commission places. And as a result of continually moving around to different schools, I struggled in school.
Mm.
I struggled to find my tribe. Struggled to actually get good marks, and I failed high school dismally. However, I managed to get into the Navy. Um, I, I went to the Navy Cadets, which was great grounding for young kids, and it gave me a little bit of a discipline and a bit of a belonging that I probably never had growing up, which was great. And that sort of naturally led into joining the Navy. There was lots of things I would have liked to have done in the Navy, but only thing I could do at the time was like a gunnery sort of sailor.
Mm.
So, but it got me a foot in the door, and yeah, and that led to down the track. I was able to study, focus, um, and I really wanted to be a policeman. My father was a policeman. Even a strange, just little kid, I always wanted to, I guess, make him proud, and I wanted to go down that path. Um, at the time when I was leaving the Navy, I couldn't get into the New South Wales Police at the time because they weren't recruiting, and the educational requirements were a lot harder than Victoria Police at the time. And a couple of my friends left and went to the Victoria Police, so I went with them, and that's an interesting story studying for that as well. I remember applying. My auntie, who I lived with at the time, gave me typing lessons, and really picked up my English. And I did a lot of IQ tests and things like that, just practicing for it. And I couldn't believe I actually got an invite to go to Victoria and do this testing. And it was in an old, big monastery, and there would have been over 100 people there doing the testing this day, and you could hear a pin drop. And there was all these tables in this big old monastery, and it was I was the last there. Everybody had finished their exams and they'd gone, and I thought I was struggling with it. They called everybody outside, and everybody got together, and they end up reading out names. And as they read out names, people would leave, and I'm thinking, they're the people that passed. And there was a small group of us left. And I'm thinking, okay, they're going to give us the bad news. And all of a sudden, this old sergeant said, congratulations, you've all passed and you've made it to the next level. And
Oh,
I'm thinking,
fantastic.
they must have made a mistake. They've picked up the wrong paper, but I'm going to run with it.
Mm.
Anyway, the rest is history. I ended up going down there for a few years and getting some great experience in the Victoria Police before transitioning to the New South Wales Police. But
Mhm.
of course, when I went to the New South Wales Police, I had to start it all over again.
Mm. And
And,
you actually had, I think, a total of 14 years with the New South Wales Police. You had a little bit of
uh,
a break after 7 years, then went back again.
it was, when was it? 90 with the New South Wales Police, it was 92 to 2007,
Mm.
15 years. Yeah.
Mm. You know,
Yeah.
what I'm sure that, from that pretty unsettled early childhood and then going into the Navy, becoming a cadet, and then wanting to join the police force, do you think it was the structure that you were craving?
I
Or
think
was
it
it,
was.
yeah?
I think it was a combination of having some structure, as you say, but also being part of something, being part of a tribe. And
Mhm.
that's something that I'd missed in those early days
Yeah.
because I really developed great friendships because I was always bouncing around the place to new schools and things like that. So it gave me a family, it gave
Mhm.
me a sense of belonging, and it was good to be proud of something bigger than just me. So
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah. And you had such a stellar career with the New South Wales Police before moving to the Federal Police Force.
yeah, correct.
Completely
So
different capacity, yes?
yeah, well, it was sort of similar. It was
Mhm.
very interesting. I always wanted to be in tactical operations. It was
Mm.
sort of like the best of the best. You had to excel, and they didn't take many people. It was a very, very hard course to get on the selection course. And then after the week of selection, if you made it into the small group that were left, you then went on to a 12-month, extremely rigorous course suite of courses, which were from firearms, um, tactical roping to yeah, all hostage rescue type of things. So it was
Mm.
very, very intense. So I did that. I struggled at it. I was not good at it. It was a really hard time for me. I was not the most gifted operator,
Mm.
but I never gave up. I always gave my best, and I think my peers respected me for that, and they let me hang around longer than I probably should have. So I was very lucky in that respect. What happened was I did get quite proficient in it. I developed leadership roles, and I did some significant leadership courses within that counter-terrorism space.
Mm.
In around 2007, the AFP recognised that they needed something in between the defence and the police that they could send offshore in peacekeeping operations, and they formed an international SWAT team, so to speak. And they actually went around and recruited from experienced police forces. It wasn't received very well by those state-based police forces because they were losing a lot of experienced police. But I went on board, transferred across. There was a significant pay rise, and for a good reason. You're traveling a lot, and yeah. And when I went across there, I did some great and interesting and challenging tasks in that tactical operations space in Solomon Islands as a peacekeeper there, over there doing all sorts of things from long-range reconnaissance missions, hunting down escaped warlords from jail and things like that, to quelling riots in the same place. Also went to Timor-Leste, worked at the Commonwealth Games, and also ended up being an advisor in counter-terrorism for some joint government groups. So it was great. Yeah, I specialised in maritime operations, and that sort of led me into stepping out of that world. It was a very, very challenging and intense time with a lot of time away, and it took its toll on my family. In 2011, my marriage broke down. But having the upbringing that I did, I had three kids, and I never wanted to be apart from them, and I always wanted to be the best dad I could. So I had to make a really, really hard decision, the hardest decision of my life, and that was to leave something that I was quite proficient in, something that I'd achieved a lot in and I was respected in, to the outside world. And I'd never really known that outside world because I'd never really operated in it. It came about, a position came up. So I was based in Canberra with the AFP. My family was in Sydney. I needed to get back to Sydney. This role came up, and it had a lot of similarities to my federal police and New South Wales police career. It was special operations, responding to international shipping disasters and putting specialist teams on there and recovering those ships. So it had a lot of aspects.
So this was when you joined Switzer?
Correct. So this is the general manager of Switzer. It was a very senior position, and I didn't think I'd have a chance at it, but I threw my head in the ring. The people that interviewed me, I reported to a Dutch board of directors, Danish, I should say, with a lot of Dutch people in it. And I just applied the scenarios that I developed and those skills that I developed in that police career to what they were talking about. And yeah, I couldn't believe I got the job. It was a big, big change in life. And I do remember the first week of that job, turning up to this big warehouse of this office in southwestern Sydney. And I remember walking upstairs to the office and speaking to one of the staff and introducing myself. And I said, where do you want me to sit? And they pointed over to the corner of this massive office with this huge mahogany desk and this amazing library behind it. And said, are you sure? I said, that's your desk. So I went over there and I felt like George Costanza with the Penske file, sitting at this big desk thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do here? But one of the things, Jane, I always remembered, and I reminded myself, no matter what job I did moving on, that those early days in those high-risk environments that I worked in the police, and I also took a bit of time out from the police and with my skills went to Iraq in 2004, where I contracted over there. Obviously a very dangerous environment. I always said to myself, what's the worst that can happen at work here today?
Mm.
Generally, in my old life, the worst that can happen was somebody could potentially die
Yes.
um, based on a decision I made.
Mm.
And I thought, what is the worst that can happen here? I could lose a contract. Yeah, sure, there was some safety risk at times, but I was managing a business.
Mm.
So I applied that, and it sort of made me think, well, you've got nothing to lose. Back yourself and make decisions. And yeah, I did a lot of reading and learned a lot about leadership in that period of time as well.
It,
Way more than what I did in my time in the
yeah.
in police special operations.
Yeah, it certainly puts everything into perspective, doesn't it? So, just to recap, from your New South Wales Police to federal police days, and when you joined the police, you were so surprised that you were chosen, okay, because you came
Yeah,
from humble beginnings. And then you said that you struggled because you had to really apply yourself in order to become as good as you became. And so that perseverance comes through, and also a really willing attitude to accept the challenge and rise to the challenge. And you discovered that you were actually good at it. And then transitioning out from New South Wales Police to the federal police and putting yourself in those dangerous situations and making another, brave leap out of a really controlled environment and dangerous yet controlled environment into more of a corporate environment, you rose to the challenge again. And I love it that you say, what's the worst thing that could happen? Because it 100% puts everything into perspective. Because when you've had your life on the line and other people's lives on the line for so long, suddenly everything is, oh, a lot less pressure, yes? Did you find that not being in a life or death situation all the time, did that make things easier for you, or did you miss that adrenaline, huge rush that you must have had?
I think if you talk to anybody that's worked in the special operations
Mm,
sphere, whether it's police special operations or uh, military special forces, they'll always say they miss the camaraderie
mm,
of that group and nucleus of people because it's very, very rare to find that outside.
mm,
And that's where I think part of that LinkedIn piece was finding a tribe and reinventing
mm,
yourself is really, really important.
mm,
So to answer your question, I found most of the new jobs that I did challenging, but I longed for the people that I used to work with, the people that I trusted implicitly with my life.
mm,
Uh, and yeah, and I just had to reframe my relationships and the way they worked, and place value, find value in the people that you work with in a different way.
mm.
Uh, so that was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'll talk to anybody, they'll always say from that background they miss that real tight camaraderie in the teams. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, I'm jumping out of helicopters and shooting machine guns and all that sort of thing, but I think more so it's the people that
That mateship, knowing that each of you has got each other's back, and no
yeah.
matter what, you know that you're there for each other.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just that like-minded, those like-minded people, and it's really hard to um, uh, tell stories to people that haven't lived that, and I generally don't.
Mm,
You'd say, well, there was this one time, but I
mm,
don't want to be that person.
mm,
I like to listen.
mm,
Uh, Active listening is a big thing for me,
mm,
and
mm. And a
I
good
find,
leadership trait as well.
I guess so. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So
So,
yeah, so that's how I deal with that.
yeah. So, Steve, tell us now. So, after Spitzer, that's when I met you, and you were making another transition, and you successfully made a number of transitions since then as well. And now you've become someone who really is a strong advocate for good leadership. Tell us, what are you doing now? And then I want to go into your leadership advice and theories.
Sure.
Mm,
So currently, I'm actually working for an oil and gas company, Santos. My
mm,
role here is it's a great lifestyle choice, but it allows me to continue my passions around leadership,
mm,
coaching, and also doing some security risk management
mhm,
back in Australia because I work a month on and a month off.
mm,
So over here, it's been great. It's been a great opportunity. There's been fantastic things. I've been able to develop capability, innovation, which is also part of what I love, but also develop teams and multicultural teams as well. So I'm the security superintendent in the field, and I deal with the PNG Police, PNG Defence, and a number of security contractors, as well as a number of community and other government agencies. So it's quite good, and I get to apply all the things that I've learned, and I'm still learning, particularly around culture as well. But one thing I think that's it's just gone across everything is leadership is leadership. And it transcends cultures, language barriers, social backgrounds. It's a really powerful thing, and if you get it right, it's amazing. And the effect that positive leadership can have on other people and businesses is fantastic. I want to be really clear in saying I don't always get it right, because it's just an ongoing journey. And that's why I journal all the time.
Tell me about your journaling, because that's such a great way to be able to get everything into perspective as well. And before I started the interview, you showed me a page of your journal, and what could you just put it up?
Yep, I'll
and
hold it up. So this is
show us so that we can see. Yeah, so there's lots of boxes, lots of colorful emojis and bullet points, and it's so you're quite a visual person, really, when it comes to your journal, and it looks like everything is very structured and yet still creative.
Yeah, so I go through a lot of these books. At the back of the books, I have some key themes, and it's almost part of like a meditation for me. Sometimes when I'm reflecting on a difficult decision I have to make, whether it's leadership or in my personal life, I'll turn to the back of this book and I'll look through it. I would look at this, if not daily, most days during the week. And I have lots of little inspiration quotes. If I can give you a few of them, I mean, a lot of these are just normal things a lot of people hear. One box is talk less, be calm, observe more, keep eye contact, think before talking, show respect, and move in silence. Like another one.
I love that.
Yeah. And another one is just simple things that I've learned from guys like Marty Moore, No Bullshit Leadership, if I can say that. Great book, got a lot out of that from Marty, and a few of the things he talks about. And I apply this to every difficult question in business. Is it simple? Does it add value? Does it treat risk? Yeah, so things like that. I'll give you one more. Don't compromise your beliefs and values for another. Yeah, so they go on. That's the sort of thing. Gives you
but they're really wise quotes that, I mean, obviously we can turn them into memes, but it's I think little snippets like that help us to focus very simply on the most important thing and keep the most important thing as the most important thing. Wouldn't you agree?
That's right.
Yeah, because so often, especially if there's a lot going on, whether it's a lot going on in business or if you're more in a dangerous situation, there's so much stimulus, everywhere, and you don't know what to do. But if you can bring it back to, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on, and then you're single-minded with it, then it really helps to get the job done, doesn't it?
Exactly. It's worked for me. I can be quite a simple human being, and when things get a little bit overwhelming, breathe, meditate. I've discovered breath work. Probably one of the other things, if I'm being completely vulnerable with you, is that 23 years in high-risk law enforcement does take a toll on most people, and I do have a complex PTSD. There's a difference between normal PTSD and complex PTSD. I mean, my symptoms are very mild. I think I was talking to a clinical psychologist at one point in time, just socially actually, and she was saying, if you've been a police officer for any longer than 5 years, you will have symptoms of that. So being able to acknowledge yourself, acknowledge your feelings, and being open and honest with yourself, and putting strategies in place, not just in your personal life, but in your professional life as well. Simple things like breath work, meditation. I've picked meditation and I'm into yoga now.
Hmm.
Things that people get a great laugh at if they really know me.
Mm.
So yeah, it's all these little things that help along the way.
But I
And
think they're so important though, Steve, because if meditation is something that you do, it really creates that mindfulness. And again, it's taking a step back and thinking, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? What sort of effect is it having on me or other people too? And it brings you back to the most important thing. And certainly it would bring you the sense of calm and stillness where you can
definitely,
make the right decisions. Yes.
yeah, for sure. And in an environment, particularly here,
Hmm.
uh, where it's quite extreme,
And I have to let everybody know that I'm interviewing you, and even though I'm here in Sydney, Australia, you're currently in the highlands of Papua New Guinea, and so
correct,
you're
yes.
in quite a different environment from where I am at the moment.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I'm home next week for my month. I'm looking forward to that and fly home on Monday. So
Mm.
I've got a busy schedule there as well, catching up with people. I'm doing another couple of podcasts as well
Yeah.
around leadership and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so, having been in many, many high risk situations, you've had your own personal transitions and challenging times as well. And from, what you're telling us, it's your resilience, your perseverance, your great attitude to life and acceptance, despite having, like challenges with PTSD, you found ways to manage that as well and still be the leader that you are today. When it comes to leadership, what would you say? Because there are so many people that I work with who are aspiring leaders, and they want to know, what type of leader am I going to be? But it kind of evolves, doesn't it? Your
Yeah.
leadership style, and then it can be very situational because each circumstance you find yourself in will require you to lead in a different way. So for some people who are aspiring to be good leaders or great leaders, what advice would you provide?
So I really advocate empathy and leadership.
Mm.
Um, Being an empathetic leader is so important particularly these days. Um, I'm a massive fan of Ted Lasso as well.
Oh, yes, yes, me
I've got a
too.
lot of inspirational quotes from Ted, and
Mm.
one of these classics is "Be curious, not judgmental."
Yes.
I think it's really, really important as a leader to do that.
Mm.
Uh, Conversely, it's also really important to understand the difference between empathy and sympathy. Uh,
Mm.
because if you end up being too sympathetic to somebody's uh, individual issues, you forget about the rest of your team and you forget why you're there. But you
Mm.
have to be empathetic. You have to have that empathy and
Mhm.
be able to understand what's going on in somebody else's mind
Mm.
and to be able to push them along and improve them. So many times I've seen working with various leaders where it's a very punitive response to non-performance
Mm.
without digging deeper and finding out what actually the issue is, you
Mm.
know, um, and what can be done to improve that person. It
Mm.
might be something going on at home. It might be an issue at work that you don't know about. And it's often until you actually get in there and ask the questions and have that person open up to you
Mm.
that you really find out what the core nucleus of the problem is. And it can be solved very, very easily.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, empathy is really, really important in a leader. The other thing, understanding that empowerment and accountability go together. So I'm all about empowering my leaders. So I guess I'm a leader of leaders now. So I'm
Mm.
mentoring a lot of managers and supervisors that work under me. And I always believe that acting at level and
Mm.
having your span of control right. So what I mean by that is if you're empowering somebody to do something, you make sure they've got the skills and
Mm.
the ability to own it. Go
Mm.
forth and own it. This is what I'd like it to look like. It's yours to make it look like that. I'm
Mm.
not going to tell you which left and right field of arc or what sort of pen to use
Mm.
to write the notes to get there. This is my intent, and you can deliver on that.
Mm.
What's important about accountability is making sure they do stay in that lane and
Mm.
offering that support. So when they do fall off the rails, you know why, or you can ask them why, and
Mm.
that there are consequences to that. People often talk about performance improvement plans or as a punitive measure, but I
Mm.
always like to look at it as an opportunity to improve somebody, because
Good.
it gets at certain stages that if you do understand the difference between empowerment,
Mm.
uh, sorry, sympathy and empathy, you have to understand it, because at a certain point in time, if it influences what you're trying to do, the business,
Mhm.
you're going to have to walk away and have the courage to have that difficult decision to let that person move on and perhaps free them up to do a better job elsewhere where it might be a better fit for them. So, yeah, empathy, ownership, accountability.
Mhm.
And as an individual, the thing that I try to instill on a lot of people leaving school these days, I mean, I talk to a lot of my kids' friends, um, believe in yourself and never give up.
Mm.
There's two really, really important things. Um, there's so many times that I failed at certain courses. I struggled getting through those tactical operations courses back in the day. Um, but whilst other people were watching movies in downtime, I was dragging people down to the range to get more rounds down range to try and improve myself. And that's where Simon came into it.
Mhm.
Best instructors I've ever come
Yeah.
across, and somebody who really epitomizes the ability to empathize with somebody, but also take them to the next level. And I think his leadership and a few other leaders were really, really fundamental for me in
Mhm.
those special operations days that I've taken through to today.
Yeah, I think in the special forces, within the police force, whether it's the Navy, any military style environment, it gives people the opportunity to become leaders because you need to make those tough calls, and sometimes you have to practice tough love. You might not want to do it, and it's all very nice. Many people like to be liked, but it's much better, I think, to be respected for your decision, even if not everyone's going to agree. And you mentioned about the importance of listening as well, because so often we don't know why someone's reacting in a certain way. But when you understand and you have that empathy that everyone has that filter through which they view their own world as well. And if you use your ears and you really listen, then you can start to peel it away and understand where they're coming from and why they're reacting in such a way at a certain time so that you can probably lead them a lot more effectively too. Yes, you've learned so many incredible leadership skills through your entire career, Steve. It's really inspiring, and I'm delighted that you work really hard for a month and then you've got time to decompress and spend time with your family as well, because you've obviously got your heart in the right place and you know what's the most important thing in your life, because ultimately that self-leadership's important too, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. And this is what again, I have this discussion with my adult children now, and reminding them of just a simple term, and that is just be the best human being you can be.
Mm.
And yeah, and just do the right thing. Doing the right thing is never the wrong thing.
Yeah, and I think that's a beautiful thought to end on. Do you have any parting thoughts for us, Steve? Because you've inspired me. 10 years now, 10 years since we first worked together so long ago, and your resilience and your ability to transform your career and build it up and be independent and be a consultant and also, work in different environments. It's incredible. And I think anyone who's been in the forces, honestly, there's so much to offer. And I've worked with a lot of people through New South Wales Police Legacy as well. And many think, what else could I do? But you're living proof that there's so much more that you can do as well. Yes. So final thoughts from you, Steve?
Just to back yourself, believe in yourself, and you're anything's possible. I
Mhm.
think that's really the message there. It's just yeah, back yourself and believe in yourself. I think
Mhm.
that also just with in terms of careers, one thing I just want to get in there toward the end.
Mm.
Sometimes when you go for positions, you think they're all shiny and glossy. You're interviewing that person as much as they're interviewing you,
Mm.
because I've made a few mistakes where I've jumped into something and I really hadn't done I was almost like a competition. I just wanted to get the job rather than going, oh, hang on, if you get that, is that really what you want?
Mm-hmm.
So think long and hard, back yourself, believe yourself, and never give up.
Mm-hmm. Wise words from Steve Budgen, all the way from the highlands of Papua New Guinea. Okay, so you take good care of yourself, Steve. And I think that we need to discuss leadership a little bit more. I'll have you back on and we'll have another chat again. But I hope that everyone's enjoyed listening to Steve's story, and do reach out to him. You'll find Steve Budgen on LinkedIn as well. And thank you so much for your time, Steve. It's been an absolute pleasure.
So good to see you, Jane, and thanks for all your help in the past too. You've been a part of that journey, so thank you.
Oh, it's, I think, a mutual respect both ways. Thanks for joining me today. For affordable career help, please check out my Career Success Program. I provide a unique blend of online and live career coaching to help you take control of every aspect of your career or career change. If you aren't where you want to be in your career, let's talk. Check it out at thecareersacademy.online. The links are in my show notes.